Welcome to the Dork Forest. Jackie and her pals will never bore us. Shameless confessions
about our obsession
will make us laugh and smile. So let's explore the Dork Forest and dork out for a while.
Hi, I'm Jackie Cation. You are about to listen to the Dork Forest. Let's give you the info about it. First of all, you know the websites. dorkforest.com, thedorkforest.com. If you like a determiner, jackiecation.com has everything. All of my podcasts, including videos of my stand-up schedule, merchandise you can purchase if you would like, and a lot more info than you possibly even need. Let's do the credits. Mike Rickberg sang and produced and composed that song at the beginning of the show. He sang with his wife, Sarah. It's very beautiful. At the end of the program, he sings his version of the Mexican hat dance. That's Mike Rickberg. Vilmos fixes JackieCation.com. He is the web designer over there. And Patrick Brady fixes the audio. And in this case, there's a video intro. Very exciting. Anyway, those are the websites. If you want to support the show, you're doing it already by listening to it or watching it. And another way is to tell your friends and family, go on iTunes, do a review. Another way is to just give me money. Yeah. You could go use the donate button. You can make it even monthly if you're okay with making things monthly. You do a PayPal monthly. There's a monthly choice on PayPal. The PayPal is a button on the Jackie Cation or the Dork Forest website, and it goes directly to me. Thank you very much. I will use it wisely or foolishly. Your call as well. Now, my email address, jackie@jackiecation.com, is where you can contact me if you have any questions or concerns and about the Dork Forest. And I do have a Venmo account. It's Jackie-Cation, oddly enough. Another way to support the show is on dorkforest.com and jackiecation.com. There's an Amazon link. And the Amazon link just takes you to Amazon. You order like normal, and it supports the show because you came from JackieCation or dorkforest.com. Very exciting. Other than that, there is a Bandcamp. You can, if you have listened to all the episodes that are free and you need more content, there are several live episodes that are at thedorkforest.bandcamp.com. And those cost me a couple of bucks, so I charge a couple of bucks. There's also a storytelling album there that you can listen to some stories that I did live. And there are 17 free episodes before the Dork Forest was pre-recorded. So the audio isn't very good, but the guests were super funny and fun and dorky. So if you want to do that, go to thedorkforest.bandcamp.com. Other than that, let's see if there are other things that I should be talking about. Possibly the merch. Yeah, if you want to buy merch. The only other thing I want to talk about is the merch. You can get Dork Forest t-shirts, and you can get stand-up comedy t-shirts. You can get my albums or my DVD over at jackiecation.com/merch. There's pins, there's a challenge coin, there's a bunch of new things happening over there. Anyway, a lot of information. I don't think I've missed anything, but who cares? Let's get into the show. Hey, it's Jackie Cation. I am in this room again. And it's the Dork Forest, you guys. And Ranger of the Dork Forest, Nicholas Betancourt, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And you know what? I should rename myself so that people know who I am, because you went with your full name.
Good, oh, yeah. Well, I don't know why. I go by Nick, but it's just, it goes by my full name.
It's a Zoom thing. Yeah. Zoom will do a thing. And so... Nick, you are at Nick Bet, Nick H. Bet.
H. Bet, yeah.
Yeah, NICKHBET, as in Nicholas H. Betancourt. So Nick H. Bet on Twitter, and then at NH Betancourt on Instagram, which you don't use a lot, but
which I do not use. If you want to see pictures from, one picture every last 6 months,
But you have a 3D printer website where you have lots of pictures. Right?
I do. So on Thingiverse, which is kind of like a social network for 3D printing. Okay. I'm TX Engineer 14.
Excellent.
So thingiverse.com/TX Engineer 14, and you can see designs I've made and things I've printed and pictures. So that's nice.
Okay. So what we're talking about is 3D printing. All right. So I say we should definitely start with that because I know
Oh,
a
yeah.
guy who owns a 3D printer, and Andy will sometimes, my fella, will sometimes get, not even sometimes, often, will hire him to make game pieces for games that
Oh,
he's
yeah.
working on, like prototypes. Are you doing that?
So I do all sorts of things. So I figured I'd tell like my story of 3D
Yeah,
printing
please.
in kind of an order because it works. So I'm a
Awesome.
mechanical engineer in
Okay.
oil and gas in Houston. That's what I do for a living.
Congratulations.
And so I've been involved, I've worked with 3D printing a little bit through my job, basically since I started. We have printers we have some plastic printers, on our campus that we can use for prototyping and stuff. So I was always kind of a little bit involved in it. We didn't use it a lot. And then I had this friend that I met through work. His name is Keegan. He lives in Tucson now. Shout out. And
Woo!
Keegan had yeah, exactly. Keegan had a printer, had a series of 3D printers. The whole time I knew him, and he was always printing stuff. And he would print these little models. He'd print like Baby Yoda, or I guess not Baby Yoda, regular Yoda.
Right.
It was pre-Baby Yoda.
Right.
Yeah, he'd print them and he'd paint them and he'd have all these things all around his house. And he was always telling me like, "Oh, you should get this. It'll be so cool. You'll love it." And I was always like, "Oh, I'm not going to use it. Like, I don't know what I'll use it for." Because
Right.
I had a tendency, like I would know, like I didn't. What Keegan does for himself is great, but for me, I was like, I don't want to just fill up my house with plastic tchotchkes
Right.
and just have them on every surface.
Right.
So I was like, okay, it's cool, but whatever.
Yeah.
So then, through work, I actually did like a couple of projects that were really cool on 3D printing on the industrial level. Technically, by the way, we should be talking about additive manufacturing, which is
what is that?
Yeah, exactly, which is any manufacturing technique in which you build parts up from incremental pieces of raw material rather than starting with a hunk of raw material and shaving it down or drilling it or whatever. So again, I got corrected on this several times at work. Technically speaking, 3D printing is a subset of additive manufacturing, but nobody ever pays attention to that. Nobody cares.
Let's unpack additive manufacturing just for a second. So there's 3D printing is doing sort of like the opposite of a mold, right?
Yeah, kind of.
Because there's a mold and you would pour something into a mold and then you would crack the mold and then you would have a pot or you would have a pipe. You would have something. Now with a 3D printer, you're starting with just raw material of plastic, I assume, and you're putting it into a machine and it comes out extruded like a Play-Doh, like a squeezy Play-Doh thing. Is that correct?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of different kinds of 3D printing, and so for work, I actually worked with metallic 3D printing, where you have like metallic powder, and then you use a laser literally to fuse a layer at a time. It's super cool, and you can print these really complex metal parts.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that is really cool. And are you overseeing it, or do you just sort of program it in, press start, and the machine does it?
So with the work stuff, it's done by a separate company. We don't have metallic 3D printers on our campus because they're it's like a whole different deal. It's like a very specialized. So we don't really we contract it out. We make CAD models. CAD is computer assisted design. People don't know that.
Okay.
And so that's like a standard part of our jobs. We have to make CAD models for everything, and then the CAD models will generate a drawing, and you send the drawing to a machinist, and the machinist makes the part. That's how you make any part anywhere.
Oh, okay. You have to make a model, and the model, then you draw plans of that model?
Exactly.
That feels architecturally backwards, and yet to make the thing maybe is easier than to draw the thing.
Oh yeah, it's way easier to be working with a 3D piece on your screen, and you say, okay, I cut here and I turn it around and I'm going to cut there, whatever. And then when you finish, you're like, okay, now I'm going to make a drawing of this so that I can hand it to a machinist, and the machinist will make it.
Okay, because the machinist himself or herself is working from paperwork to create a larger version of that, a smaller.
No, it's exactly that. So if you have just a screw, again, this is for any machining. This isn't just for 3D printing.
Yeah.
You have a drawing of exactly, okay, so the slot goes here and it's this long or whatever. You hand it to the machinist, and the machinist makes it on their various machining equipment.
Right. Okay, I've digressed. So, but additive manufacturing is you have a device, and then you're going to add something to it. You've manufactured something separate that you're going to add to it. Okay.
Yeah, you take this CAD model that you've made that you would make anyway, and you just basically feed it straight into the machine. There's a little bit more involved of a process, which I can maybe talk about later. But you feed it straight into the machine, and the machine just sort of spits it out.
Okay.
And different processes use different techniques to go from to make it. So again, there's the thing with the lasers. There's something called binder jet where they literally glue pieces together.
Yeah.
So industrial 3D printing is a whole separate deal, which is really fascinating. But it's not.
It's not your dorkdom. It is not your toy.
Dorkdom.
Yes.
Exactly. Exactly. That's a great way to put it. This is my toy. So on the consumer level, 3D printing is basically divided into two different sort of categories. So there's FDM, which stands for Fusion Deposition Modeling. That's the kind that I have. And so what that is that you start with a roll of filament. It's plastic. There's lots of different material types, but there's a standard one, PLA, which is what they make. Basically, it's made of polylactic acid. It's biodegradable, and it's what they make most disposable silverware that you get at a restaurant. That's PLA. So you have this big roll of PLA. It's like a plastic wire, and you feed it through the top. It goes into a little heated nozzle, and the nozzle moves around and goes printing it up layer by layer by layer.
Okay. It's essentially just stacking plastic on top of each other.
Exactly.
Until it makes a thing. Okay.
Exactly. Just melted plastic, just layer by layer, layer by layer. So that's so FDM is great. It's versatile. You can use different materials, really cool materials, strong materials. You can do flexible materials. There's carbon fiber impregnated PLA that you can make really strong stuff. I could really do that with my machine with just a minor upgrade, because the nozzles that you're extruding the plastic out of are the standard material is brass, which is great because it conducts heat really well. But brass is also really soft. So if you have anything that's filled with stuff carbon fiber or metal or anything like that, it'll wear the hole out entirely. And so it won't work. So you have to get these special hardened nozzles, but which you can get. They're $15.
Okay. Oh, that's okay. So you can make whatever you feed into it, you will make a different item, obviously, right? And it can be a different. It'll have different properties. It could be bendy. It can be solid. It can be something else. Magnetic. Oh, okay. Yeah. All right.
Conductive. You can do conductive polymers and print a circuit board. I've never done that, but you can do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. What? Okay. Mm-hmm. So. All right. So, so you were doing it at work, and then you're like, I would actually like this at the house.
Kind of like this. So again, my friend Keegan, this whole time, years, every couple months, I'll be like, hey, so you should get a printer. And at one point, he sends me this specific one. It's called the Prusa Mark III.
How do you spell Prusa?
Prusa.
Makes sense.
Made by a guy, it's a Czech company. For basically from 2000 to 2015, the consumer level 3D printing is all about MakerBot. MakerBot's like the Apple of consumer 3D printers.
Okay.
And it's nice in some ways because it's plug and play. They will usually always work.
Okay.
But for 3D printing, usually the kind of person who gets a 3D printer is the kind of person who loves to tinker with stuff.
Yeah.
Guilty. And so it's a very closed ecosystem. You can't really mess with it. If it breaks, you got to send it to them to repair. It's not very flexible. So Prusa is an outgrowth of a thing called RepRap. RepRap is this big, giant sort of conglomeration of communities that started in the UK that's basically under the idea that 3D printers should have as many as possible of their parts themselves be 3D printed. Made out of plastic.
Oh, so that you could make your own replacement parts.
Exactly.
Oh my God, the AIs are coming. Okay.
The AIs are totally coming.
I am sympathetic, but not supportive. Anyway.
So Prusa, the Prusa Mark III is an outgrowth of that, and it's totally open source. You can get the plans for everything, all the software, everything is just available online for you to download. So you could buy all the raw materials yourself and make it if you wanted. But realistically, you buy it from them. You either buy it fully made, or you get like a $300 discount if you buy it as a kit, which you build yourself, which again, engineering nerd, I was like, yeah, all right.
Ooh, a kit.
Exactly, a kit.
A model. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you do models when you were a kid?
I didn't. It's weird. I was an engineer. I'm like a really nerdy engineer now, but when I was a kid, it was like not really, I was not the kid. Keegan was, my friend Keegan was the guy who built the models and whatever. Yeah. But I never really was somebody who like tinkered a lot or like broke open, cabinets to see how they went together. That wasn't my thing. Now I do. I love it, but it's just wasn't my thing.
But so weirdly enough, you sort of fell into it later. Okay, exactly. That's awesome. That's so cool.
So, but still, he sends this to me. It's like $700 for the kit. And I'm like, okay, but I still don't know what I would use it for.
Yeah.
So enter, now we get to the Gloomhaven part of this story.
Okay, Gloomhaven is a game.
Gloomhaven is a board game.
It's a board game.
So I am not a huge, I play some board games, some video games. I'm not like a huge gamer.
Right.
It's fine. But so I'm reading Gizmodo, the tech blog Gizmodo.
Okay.
Randomly one day. And I'm scrolling past and there's this like promotion thing that says, Gloomhaven is now on sale for $150. And I'm literally keep scrolling. I don't know what this means. But as I'm scrolling, I'm reading a paragraph and three things jump out at me. One is that this was voted the 2017 Board Game of the Year by BoardGameGeek.com.
Right.
Two is that this was its third printing and the first two printings had sold out in 1 week.
Okay.
And that resale and were resold on eBay for like $250, $300.
Right. So ridiculous collector.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that makes me go, okay, so if this is available and this seems to be cool, let me look at it. So I look at it. And so what Gloomhaven, and I find out what it is, and I'm fascinated and I buy it. So what Gloomhaven is it is a legacy board game. So legacy games are the new hotness in board games nowadays.
And sometimes fun, sometimes not fun. Sometimes well done, sometimes not well done. But is Gloomhaven only available as a legacy game?
Yes.
Okay, so legacy means finite, right? You play it for, I tried to do Pandemic, literally got bored. And because I like original Pandemic, and I'm not enjoying the one we're living through. But but legacy is it's got a story arc essentially, and so there's maybe 12 episodes or something, right?
Yeah. So Gloomhaven has like 100 episodes. So it's
big.
It's huge. It's basically a video game, but as a board game.
And how many people play?
1 to 4. So you can actually play it by yourself. Yeah.
You can play Gloomhaven as a one-player board game?
As a one-player game, just like as a video game for yourself, kind of.
Oh my God. I think I might have to get it then, because my biggest problem with the Pandemic was trying to get 4 people to schedule their lives.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
You were just like, oh, well, I guess we aren't. I mean, maybe that's what did it, but there's a single-player version.
There is a single-player mode. It's the same thing.
Yes.
So,
okay.
So I read this game. I start looking at it. So basically, it's basically a video game. So you make a character. You make like a party, a group of characters, and there's a story that you follow. And every session you sit down, and it's like one scenario. It's like 2 to 4 hours, and the game tells you how to. You have all these map tiles. So the game says put the tiles together like this. Put down like obstacle tokens and monster tokens here. And then this is your story. This is your goal for the scenario, and you play through. And the play itself is really fun. It's like card based, and so you have these moves that you can play out of your hand. But then there's strategy involved. It's really the rules are really, really complicated, and it took us all a long time to get used to it.
Oh, it's all fiddly? Okay.
Yes. It's very, very fiddly.
I slowly back away, possibly from Gloomhaven. But once you get it, and it's amazing? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Super, super fun. So I get this game. I start setting it up. I find a group of people. We play once a week. We have a blast. So we're doing this for like 6 months. There's this big community on Reddit for Gloomhaven.
Okay.
Literally a huge portion of this community is people asking these weird rules questions where it's like, if I'm in this thing and this happens and whatever, like, but of course. The other thing that people do on this, sorry.
Right. And it's one of the great things about Reddit. When Reddit is used for its powers for good, you can find out weird, very, very specific things.
Exactly. By the way, I talk really fast, and I get carried away. So please, like, if you need to smack me on the head and be like,
Oh.
I need to talk now.
This is my favorite Dork Forest. Plug and play. Go, my friend. Go. I'm with Nick Betancourt, by the way, and it is TX Engineer 14 on, what is the name of that?
Thingiverse.
Thingiverse.
Yeah,
Okay.
Thingiverse, which is run by MakerBot, the Apple of 3D printing.
Okay.
But
just so you know. Anyway, yeah.
So all right, so I'm on this thing, and the other thing that people do is the in Gloomhaven, the monsters and the obstacles or whatever are these little cardboard tokens. They come with the game. They have the picture printed on them. And you know, I'm not like a minifig person. I never did Warhammer or whatever, but I know that those people exist.
Sure do.
And those people really wanted minifigs. They really wanted minifigs for this game.
Oh, right.
But there would literally, if you want, like, so, and the creator, by the way, Gloomhaven is the brainchild of one person, Isaac Childress. His mind must be a wonderful place.
That's awesome. Okay.
Yes.
Has he made other games?
He made a game called Forge Wars, something like that. That was his one before Gloomhaven.
Okay.
Then he made a Gloomhaven spin-off called Founders of Gloomhaven, which I did not like.
Okay.
But that was because it was not my kind of game. I hate games where when you make a decision, you get like locked into it. So I hate that. So
regular Gloomhaven has more flexibility to it.
Oh yeah, because it's like you know, there's chance elements to it. You're not rolling dice, you have cards.
Okay, so is it a deck building game? Is it a worker replacement game? What is it?
It's kind of like, a friend of mine described it as Dungeons and Dragons for people who really don't want to play Dungeons and Dragons. Yes.
Yeah. How so?
Because it's it's basically entirely combat. Although some of the scenarios you do like non-combat things, but it's still mostly like you got monsters and they're trying to kill you.
Okay.
And the story is really cool. Like I mentioned that there's like 100 different scenarios and you play one every time, but then you make choices as a team, as a party at the end of it. And it's like choose your own adventure. There's like branching storylines and
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so, I'm back. I'm now interested in Gloomhaven.
Okay, we're back in. Okay, you're coming out, you're coming back in.
Yeah. I spent my entire life with games like that going, I don't know, it looks hard. Oh, it's super fun. Okay. Yeah.
So you're fighting at the end of it. So there's all these monsters and all these obstacles. There's like, hundreds of these little tokens. And so Childress, the Isaac Childress, the guy who made it, was asked, they were like, oh, people want minifigs because the player characters have minifigs that it comes with. And he's like, it would have made the box would have been twice as big, and the box is already enormous. Like here,
right.
I'll point you that game at the bottom, that's the Gloomhaven box. It's
okay.
Huge.
All right. Yeah. It's taking up half of a shelf. Essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's super tall. We might have it. I know that we have a game closet and some of the boxes are too big.
Yeah.
So, okay.
So he was like, yeah, the box would be twice as big and this $150 game would be a $300 game. Like, it's just too much. And if I made it, yeah. So there's this community of people who are on the Gloomhaven Reddit, and they are 3D printing minifigs for the monsters, for the obstacles. Enter the 3D printer. They're also, by the way, 3D printing organizing stuff for the stuff, which I also love because I'm that kind of a nerd. Because the game's huge and there's a million components, so it helps to be able to organize things. Places put the cards, the tokens, whatever.
I see. Okay, the insert into the box. Okay,
exactly.
Got it. All right.
So again, and now I'm still a little hesitant. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. But now my thing is, okay, but I can't paint, and I don't want to make blank because I have the motor skills of like a drunk monkey. Like I can't paint for shit.
Okay.
So enter into this scenario. My partner, Christopher, who we had been dating for like 6 months, maybe.
Sure.
At this point, not that long. And I had brought it up to him and this cool thing or whatever. And Christopher is in the restaurant business, but he also has lots of side hobbies. He's a makeup artist on the side, and he's a drag queen on the side, and he also does art on the side. He's very artsy fartsy.
That's awesome.
Exactly. And so we'd been chatting, and I mentioned to him that I can print these minifigs, but I don't know how to paint them and whatever. And out of the blue, I'm at work and he texts me and he goes, "Hey, so I was looking at YouTube tutorials on minifig painting, and it seems like I could do this. This is a thing that I could do. It would be fun." And I was like, and I just go, "Wait, are you telling me that if I bought this and I printed these, you would paint them?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I go, "I'm buying it right now." I was literally sitting at my work computer. I bought it then. I went on the website and I bought it.
That is awesome, because now it's something. Now you have a thing you do together.
Exactly.
Right. So you bought the 3D printer at that moment.
Yeah,
and
right at that moment.
And did you buy the Prusa?
I bought the Prusa. I bought the one that Keegan, because I was like, Keegan has done all the research. He's done all the whatever.
Sure.
He has like an even fancier printer. He has like a professional level, whatever.
Oh,
but
really?
But he had said to me, he was like, "You don't need that. This is the one you need." And I was like, "You know what? I trust you. You're smart."
Right. And if you buy something basic, how much is the Prusa? How much
The
was
Prusa
it?
the kit is $700.
Okay, because
No.
you save $300 if you build
Yeah.
it yourself or something,
Exactly.
right?
Do not ask me how much I have spent since then on like additions, modifications, upgrades.
How long have you had it?
This would have been this was happening the fall of 2018, so about 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've had it for 2 years, and you are printing minifigs for Gloomhaven.
I am printing. Well, I'm not anymore. I did.
Okay.
That
that was the gateway.
That was the gateway.
Printer.
So it comes in. I have to build it. Building it is fun, but I'm doing it like at night. I work 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And it was actually really funny. Christopher and I were not living together at the time. Oh, fun side note. Christopher and I moved in together literally 3 weeks before pandemic started.
Wow, that. I hope I like you.
Yeah,
And,
pretty much. We are now, because we're now married.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Congratulations, though. I'm so
insane.
glad. I'm really glad that it worked.
It did. It worked out. There were rough
Yay.
times, but you know what? It's a hard time.
Exactly. It is a hard time. You got to organize and figure out how to live together. Yeah. Talk to me about it. I have not been home for 6 months in a row for 30 odd years. And I am married. And Andy is, it's been really, really cool with occasional, could I go into a different room, please? And, right. So obviously, and now we have this tiny garage room, which I sometimes spend 3 or 4 hours in it, which means that he can get work done in the house. And we have our computers set up sort of like back to back, like a cube, and so I'm chatty. He doesn't.
Me too.
Yeah, he doesn't need it. So if I'm in this room, I can fuck off. Quite honestly.
Yeah,
anyway, so okay, so now you have.
So now I have this printer. It has come. I now have to build it. Building it is fun, challenging, but fun. It was really funny because I built it on my kitchen table, but then the other thing is I don't have anywhere to put it once it's built. So the very first thing that I printed with it was a thing that the Prusa people have on their site, which is it's an enclosure that's made out of 2 $5 IKEA tables.
Oh.
Yes, because it's open. Because that's the other thing is that it's here. This is the first time that I'm going to share my screen.
Okay.
So for those of you who are looking at this on YouTube,
right.
okay. So that's not a good picture.
Right.
Oh, there we go. That's better.
There we go.
So share photos. There we go. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. What?
So if you look on the inside of it, so the printer is open. It's not enclosed by default. And I have a cat. So that's a recipe for disaster.
Sure is. And are you torturing the cat by having a roll of toilet paper underneath it? What is...
She's not that kind of a cat, but if she was, it would be a problem.
Yeah. So it's a 2-story cabinet.
It's essentially a 2-story cabinet built out of IKEA tables. And so they had this stuff on their site on how to build like these things to put it all together, these little shelves to put like the power supply, all this stuff. So that was the very first thing that I built.
Right. And they also have a link to IKEA, to the exact table you need, hopefully?
Yes, exactly. It's the IKEA's like the cheapest coffee table they got. But yes, it's the exact one that you need.
And so the symbiotic relationship between what? But what is it called?
Between Prusa. This is Prusa.
It's Prusa and IKEA. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
There we go.
But it's two. So what is in the lower and what is in the upper?
The lower cabinet is just a bunch of like my tools and shit. That paper, the toilet paper is actually paper towels because one of the things, like there's lots of like things that you have to think about when you're 3D printing, and that's one of the things I love about it. There's like a lot of different little things to track, and one of them is the very first layer that you print on has to stick, and it has to stick perfect. Because if it doesn't, if it comes loose, the whole thing just goes to shit. It'll just totally come apart. It's called spaghetti because you literally end up with what looks like a bunch of spaghetti. Because if the nozzle is going to still move wherever it thinks it needs to be moving, but if the part underneath it isn't there anymore, you're just making a mess.
Okay, weird. Okay, so is the green and yellow on top with the fan? What is that?
So that's not a fan. That's a temperature and humidity sensor. Same deal. So if you want it, if this is not so much a problem, I live in Houston, so it's not so much of a problem here. But if you live in a cold climate, especially when you print with certain materials like ABS.
What's ABS?
ABS is what they make Legos out of. I've never printed with ABS because it's a bitch to print with and it smells like burning plastic when it's printing.
Oh, charming.
Yeah, not so much.
Yeah, it's. So
if you print with those and the area around the printer is cool, the print it'll cool down too fast and it'll warp. So it's nice to have the inside of it, and you don't have to have like a heater or anything. The printer itself will just heat up the enclosure.
Okay, can you zoom in on that?
Yes.
Oh.
Can I?
Ooh.
There we go.
Ooh.
There.
Okay, so there is the thing you tap, or is that tap
the control panel. No, it's with buttons. There's no touch. Fortunately, not fancy enough for touch screen.
It does look very simple and just a knob and an LED screen. Yeah.
Yep.
So how do you do it?
So you. So you have to, of course, you have to keep everything very clean because that's the thing about sticking is that you have to clean everything with alcohol before you print with it. But you also have to clean, and then they tell you that like once a month clean with acetone. And I was like, where the hell do I buy acetone? And I looked it up on Reddit. Yeah. And they were like, you can buy acetone at like Home Depot, but the best place to buy acetone for this, the purest acetone you can buy, is at the pharmacy. Because if you buy 100% acetone for nail polish remover, because it's for people, because it's pharmaceutical. Yeah. It's super pure and it won't leave a residue.
Oh, so you're just it's nail polish remover.
Nail polish remover. You have to make sure that you don't get anything with anything fancy in it, like with vitamin E or whatever. You're like, I want the good shit. Pure.
Right. I don't need it to be softer. I just need it. Yeah, I'm not trying to keep my nails alive. I'm trying to clean a thing. So is nail polish remover? This is much like lipstick, people. I don't know anything about nail polish remover. Is that the default? Is it cheaper to get it without the vitamin E, or is it cheaper to get it with stuff in it?
It's usually cheaper, but if it's cheaper, it's by like, it's a 16-ounce bottle. So it's a difference of like $1, $2.
Right. It's 47 cents difference. Yeah, fair enough. Okay, just curious. Okay, now it looks like you have made crystal.
So these are crystals. These are little crystal things being printed, and if you look back here, this is what they look like painted.
Oh, nice work, Christopher.
Christopher is there we go. This is nice. So for Christmas that year, I got him a little light box like they use for like eBay things. So you like set it up and it has lights and like a background.
Okay.
So a lot of these pictures are taken in that. Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
So a lot of these pictures are taken in that. So he's done some amazing jobs on printing these. We're like these dragons are insane, these little mini dragons, and I put a little quarter in there. They're tiny. Like I don't understand how he can do this. He's sitting there holding it right in front of his face with
he's not using a micro like a Sherlock Holmes has
a magnifying glass. No.
Thanks for playing password with me. Okay, so
nope, he's just doing it with his eyeballs.
Look what he did with the tongue. Okay, go to YouTube, you guys. You got to see this stuff.
I mean, he's like, and these paintbrushes he's using have like 3 hairs on them, and he's just it's insane.
That's so cool. You are so lucky that he loves to do this.
I am so lucky.
And he's so lucky that you have a 3D printer. So
exactly. So I'm printing all of these minifigs, and I have to change nozzles. So I remember I said that the nice thing about these Prusa printers is that they're sort of like configurable. You can mess with them. And one of the things that you can configure is, I'm going to unshare my screen for a bit.
Okay.
So one of the things that you can configure is the nozzle size. So I mentioned that you have this filament that pushes out, and it goes through this. It gets heated up and squeezed out through the nozzle. So the standard aperture size for a nozzle is 0.4 millimeters. Everything, by the way, everything 3D printing related is metric. Absolutely
Right.
everything.
Sure. How is your metric? Is it pretty good?
It's gotten a lot better since I started doing this.
Can you think in metric yet?
I can, and again, it's because of this. It's because I've had so much experience now with okay, so when I make it 1 millimeter, it looks like this, or it fits this way. When you get that sort of practical hands-on.
Yeah, I would like to learn that language. And again, no effort is being put into that. But go for it. Yeah.
So if you can change that aperture size, and if you go bigger, you can print faster because you print more material at a time and also stronger.
Okay.
If you go smaller, you can get more detail. And so
like the bumps on the dragons.
Exactly, the bumps on the dragons. So the standard, there's a lot of different things that affect the quality of a 3D print, like how much detail you can get. But the sort of the most important is layer height. So again, 3D printing builds up layer by layer by layer. The thinner your layers, the prettier your print's going to look, the smoother it's going to look, especially when you have lots of curves.
Okay.
Curves and slopes. So
curves and what?
Slopes.
Slopes. Yeah. Got it.
But then for minifigs, what the tiny nozzle lets you do is it gives you better detail on the horizontal. So if you have a tiny little ridge where he's holding a sword,
yeah,
you can print that a lot better and with more detail. And you can also print these tiny layer heights. To give you a rough ballpark of what layer heights are like. So 0.2 millimeter layer height is like a rough draft. 0.15 is some detail. 0.1 is pretty detailed. So with a tiny nozzle like that, ones that I use to print these minifigs, you can get 0.05 layer height. So these really hyper detail.
Wow. So, I had a question and it went away. Okay. No, that's okay. It's the detail. So you're layering to make the minifig. Yeah. And you're making sure the first layer is solid. It's
solid and sticky.
Because it's building on that first layer up from there. And then I know. It's if it has a knob and a button, how the hell are you creating the instructions?
Ha. So here's another, I'm going to share again.
Okay.
So you use a slicing program. So the way the design of a part into the printer is in three stages. Tiny boat. This is called Benchy. This is a standard benchmark. The SS Benchy. It's a standard benchmark print. So if you print this, your printer's working pretty good.
Okay.
So.
Is it the test print?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, interesting.
The SS Benchy because it's a benchmark.
Yes.
So you start with whatever program you're designing, your CAD program. For work, I'm familiar with one called Creo. SolidWorks is a very, very popular one.
Okay.
There's a free one called Fusion 360.
Yeah.
Which is very popular because it's free.
Yeah.
But this, by the way, was the downfall of consumer 3D printing in the aughts and the teens. Was that MakerBot especially tried really hard to push this for consumers, but the big problem was that the software to design CAD software is one, really hard to use, and two, really expensive. Like a commercial license for SolidWorks costs $2,000 a year.
Oh my God.
So if you're not a company.
Yeah. Because how do you write that off? How do you
exactly?
Yeah, you need a company. So what's the free one called?
The free one's called Fusion 360.
And it's okay? Is it?
It's okay. I've used it. It's okay.
Okay, but the one that you have is called Creo, or?
The one that I have is called Creo, and so I use that. That's the one that I use for work.
Okay. So they have purchase license. Yeah.
Exactly.
Because it's work.
Exactly.
They're a job.
Okay. So you make whatever you're going to make in your CAD program, whatever it is, and then you export it. And so the CAD file is what they call parametric. So it's sort of conceptual. You say, I've got a block this big, and I cut out a slot here and a hole there, and it's all like that. So you can manipulate it and go back and say, no, I don't want that, or change it, whatever. So then you export it, you save it as a mesh file. And the mesh file is literally just a bunch of triangles. And all it is the final sort of physically, what does the outline of this part look like? So you can't actually do anything with a mesh file. I mean, you can, there are programs that let you do it, but it's much, much harder because it's like working with clay. You can't just say put a hole here or whatever. It's like you have to physically move things.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So don't mess with mesh files if you don't have to.
Okay.
But anyway, so then the mesh file gets loaded into this program that I'm showing right now, which is called a slicer. There's lots of different types of slicers. I'm using one called Prusa Slicer because it's free, and it's the one that Prusa makes.
Right.
And the slicer is the part where you create a file. The file is called a G-code file. And the G-code file is raw data that says to the printer, move the nozzle here, extrude the plastic there. It's
sort of like old timey looms that actually had computer cards.
It's exactly like that.
Okay.
It's exactly like that.
Do
so
this,
the G-code
don't do
file,
that.
Yeah, exactly. Move here. So that's raw. So the G-code file. So when people share their designs online, they share their STLs, the mesh files.
Okay.
That's because it's the easiest thing because you can just plug it straight into the slicer and slice it for your printer.
Okay.
Sometimes people share G-code files, but G-code files are super specific because they're for your printer. They encode like the temperature, all of your little idiosyncratic, things. So it's all very personal. So you can share G-code files. Some people do, but it only works if the other person has the exact same printer you do.
And if you don't, do you have to sort of retcon? Do you have to sort of unpack it and
sometimes,
repack it?
But there's very little you can do from a G-code file. Like you can maybe like change the temperature, but that's pretty much it.
Oh, good grief. So if you do share it as a mesh file.
As a mesh file.
And then the mesh file has to be made into a G-code file anyway.
Exactly.
For your own device.
So when you do it, and I'll show here, so you stick it in, you put all your settings, your layer height, and your whatever. There's, again, a million different settings to play with. This is the worst part about printing is when a print doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so you have to go back in and you go, okay, what can I tweak? Because there's 100,000 things you can tweak.
Right.
And you just go keep doing it. So so then when you get it, then it creates this, you review it, and you can't, for those of you who are not on YouTube, it will spit out like a preview that you can go layer by layer. Let me zoom in.
Okay.
And I'll say, okay, so this is the 43rd layer, one. Okay.
How many layers has this thing got?
This one, because I printed it in pretty nice detail, has 320 layers.
Okay.
But the number of layers obviously depends on what you're building and how thick you want your layers to be. And
can the layers? What is the thickest? Like, could you do it in one?
That so the layer maximum layer thickness depends on the width of your nozzle, like I mentioned before.
Right.
So that's why bigger nozzles print faster because you could do thicker layers.
Okay, I see. Yeah.
On a 0.4 millimeter, the standard nozzle, the thickest you can do is 0.3 millimeters. But that's kind of iffy. It'll be really ugly. The next size up, which I use sometimes for a 0.6 and 0.8 millimeters nozzle, you can do 0.4 millimeters, and that's nice because you can get, if you're printing just like a block, something that's not a slope like a functional piece. Thick layers are nice, and you can just go fast.
Right, and it's and the detail is there if you use a bigger nozzle. Like it's like if the nozzle is bigger, it can give you a little more detail.
No, if the nozzle is bigger, it gives you less detail.
Okay, it just prints faster.
It just prints faster.
Right, so it's just a little more blobby looking.
Exactly, that's your trade-off: faster versus faster print versus detail.
Makes sense.
So this once you have it and you like it, then you load it onto for my printer an SD card, which is a little memory card. Oh. You plug it in the side and you say, okay, print this file, and then it goes.
Because the button and knob on your printer will find the file.
Exactly. You just navigate to the menu and you say, okay, I want this file.
And you're pulling it off an SD card, which is an old-timey camera card, if I remember correctly.
I mean, it's a regular camera card. If you buy a digital camera now, that's what it is.
That's what it is.
Now,
different sizes.
You can, with the Prusa, and lots of people do, you can do this whole thing online. There's a service and a thing called Octoprint. Whole thing where you just connect to your printer over the internet and you load the file over the internet and it all goes through there. I've tried it. Sorry, you're going to say something?
No, I was going to ask, is there a way to hardwire your computer to the Prusa?
Yeah, but that's actually bad because then if your computer cuts out for any reason, the whole print dies.
Ah.
Yeah.
That's why you're using and when you've tried to do it over the internet, what happens?
It's fine. It just, for me personally, it just seems like a bunch of extra steps that don't really help.
Oh, when you can just put it on the card and then
People really like
roll
it.
over. Yeah.
They can leave. You can hook up a webcam. If you go on YouTube and look up like 3D printer time lapses, you can do this thing where it hooks up a webcam to it, and then in between every layer, it moves to the same place and takes a picture, so that you get this time lapse where it looks like this whole thing is just climbing and magically appearing from the bed. It's pretty cool looking.
Oh, that's awesome.
You can only do that with the when you do it online with Octoprint. That's what it's called.
Okay. Yeah. I have another question.
Yes.
Unless you have more about the software. Okay, so how much are the plastic parts? How much is the stuff you use to...
So, the plastic, once you get the plastic, it's, for the most part, super cheap. It's like $20 for a kilogram, which is a lot of plastic.
Okay.
And you end up like, anybody listening who does textiles, like knits or crochets or whatever, has a similar problem with yarn, where you'll buy a new skein of yarn, or in my case, a new roll of filament, because you're like, oh, this is a really pretty color, or it's supposed to print really cool. And then you just end up with this gigantic pile of filament boxes, and you're like, I need to stop buying filament and just use what I have.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I have friends who have like closets full of yarn or whatever, or cloth or whatever.
Yes, exactly.
So you have boxes and boxes of different colors. Are there different, and I know that there are because you've mentioned it, but different textures that you have? Yeah, different material types. So as I mentioned, PLA is like the basic one, and it's cheap, it's biodegradable, it prints really easy. Okay. Because that's the other thing is that different materials have different like difficulties of print. So PLA prints super easy. You don't need a heated bed. So the Prusa and almost all modern printers have a heater into the bed, so it stays nice and hot while you're printing. And with most of the fancy materials, you actually need that, or it won't stick and the whole thing won't work. Yeah. But PLA, you actually technically don't need that. Which is great, because for the old-fashioned printers, like the old ones, they didn't have it. But so my two materials are PLA, something called PLA Plus, which is literally just like fancy PLA, and PETG. PETG is what they make soda bottles out of. Okay. Well, technically, soda bottles are PET without the G, whatever. Okay. And so PETG is it's stronger. It's nice. Okay. The downside to PETG is that it's I forget the word. There's like a fancy science word for this, but it absorbs moisture from the air really easily. Okay. And if it's humid, like if you live in, say, Houston, you can't really leave it out for very long. It'll start to absorb all the moisture from the air, and then it doesn't print very well. It doesn't stick. It doesn't. So you have to store it somewhere super dry. Yeah, I store all of my filament. Again, giant nerd. I have one of those vacuum sealer vacuum sealers for food. Sure. Yeah. Because I also sous vide. What's sous vide? Sous vide is where it's like you have what I call the magic wand, and you have food in this vacuum sealed bag. So you suck all the air out, and it's nice and tight. And then you have this little like stick that you stick into a pot full of water, and you control it from an app. And you say, okay, I want the water to be at 156.7 degrees Fahrenheit. And then you put the food in there for like 4 hours. It's low and slow, and then it comes out and it's perfectly cooked, and you open the bag and it's done. So you can make all these like it's great, like vegetables, and you can make steak that's like perfect all the way through. You could make yogurt. People absolutely make yogurt with this, and creme fraiche. I have been making yogurt in quarantine. I've learned to make yogurt, and I've learned another thing, Nick. I don't eat a lot of yogurt. So I've learned to make a thing. So you essentially shrink wrap this stuff, which can keep it at a better temperature. It keeps it at a better humidity. You stick so it keeps all the humidity out. But then I bought, this is one of the things that I bought where I'm like, do I really need this? But I actually love it now. I bought a device called the Print Dry, which is they charge a premium to sell you a food dehydrator. And that's literally what it is. Okay. And so you put the filament in there while it's printing, or when it's not, whatever, and you turn it on, and it just blows hot air on it to suck all the moisture out if you have either to keep it dry or to dry it out. It's attached to your coffee table setup? Yeah, I just put it on top of the coffee table. Okay. And and so it's portable. So you just do it when you're printing, essentially. Yeah. Just to blow hot air on it to get the moisture out of there. Yeah, it's the same. It's literally for people who make jerky or whatever, it's the same thing. Just blows hot air. Fair enough. That is fascinating. Now, I have seen I have watched a YouTube video where they have made housing.
Oh, those huge ones. I've seen those. Those are super cool, like the concrete ones.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't have one of those for me.
No, that's a future trip. So but you can make, all you have to do, so you, in the software, you can design, right?
Yeah.
So you could design anything. You're like, I would like a sword. I need Glamdring, and which is Gandalf's sword. But it was, I would like that, and you could print that. Now,
Make it.
your 3D printer is relatively small.
Yes, this is actually for a 3D printer. Mine's on the large side. It's the print volume. Yeah, the print volume is 250 by 250 by 210 millimeters. So it's like 10 by 10 by 12 inches, or 10 by 12 by 10 inches. But yeah, so if you want to print Glamdring, cosplayers, by the way, the other thing that we haven't even touched on is cosplayers love 3D printing. You want to print yourself a Stormtrooper helmet or an Iron Man faceplate, love that.
And you can do it so it fits?
Well, you have to break it into pieces.
Okay, so you're making parts. Essentially,
exactly.
You're making a model, and then you're reassembling it
and then
once
you
it's out.
reassemble it and you glue it together. Yep.
And you glue it together.
Yeah.
Okay, this is another hour. Okay, so so have you done any of that? Have you made any costume parts?
I have not done. I'm not a cosplay person. I'm not a huge costume person. My partner, the drag queen, has always been. He has been. We've chatted about it. There are things we have ideas, things that we could do. How about
the fruit hat?
Oh, yes, the Carmen Miranda hat.
Yes.
Oh, you want to hear a hilarious story about that?
Yes,
my
please.
Little brother, it was born on Halloween.
Okay.
And my sister Monica is 9 years older than him. So the day that he was born, she was trick-or-treating. And she finished trick-or-treating and then came to the hospital. And so there's a picture of her holding her newborn baby brother in a full Carmen Miranda costume with the hat.
Oh my God, that should be framed. That picture needs to be printed and made nice.
Absolutely.
Because that is that's fun for him. That's fun for her. That's fun for you. I have a Carmen Miranda story myself. I've always wanted Andy to make, he's a game designer, and so I have always wanted him to make a game called The Final Banana. And The Final Banana would essentially be like not Tetris, but Jenga, where you would stack fruit and you would stack the final banana. He, it turns out, has feature creep and has been has overworked the final banana idea for a game into 1,000 other games that have cards.
I love that.
That have he wants there to be a card on your head that has a banana. He wants to build a crown that you wear and you have to build it on a person's head. I'm like, stop talking. Make me a pile of fruit and then the final banana. He has not done that. He has not done that. But maybe when he does do it, you can 3D print fruit.
Oh, absolutely. The one thing that I wanted to talk about before time was so I mentioned way back in the Stone Ages when I started this conversation that there's two main categories of 3D printers for consumers, and that mine is the FDM, the fusion model with plastic. The other main one, it has a couple different names. People usually refer to them as resin printers. So resin printers use a totally different style to build up material, which is where you take a bunch of liquid and you pour it into a tank, and there's a screen that's like literally it's a screen, but instead of like sending out like a regular LED screen, but instead of sending out visual light, it sends out UV light. And so and this liquid that you pour in is UV curing. So you cure, you make solid. It's one layer at a time. So it's like the screen will have the image of one layer and then it moves down. It has the image of the next layer and it moves down. And resin printers are really cool. People who get really into minifigs use resin printers because the resin printer, they're unlike FDMs. There's not as much material choice. They're not as flexible. But what they are is hyper detailed. You can make these tiny, beautiful parts with these tiny layer heights. You can make these gorgeous minifigs. Yeah. And I kind of want one. Yeah. But Christopher said no, because the one I want is $2,000.
Oh God.
And also, they are really messy and You have this liquid that you have to deal with. So when you take it out, they're still wet, and you have to like cure them specially. And they
you would
smell.
need a workspace. Yeah, you would need a work room. Yeah,
you need a garage basically because they also give off fumes.
Yeah, you need essentially your dad's workroom.
Exactly.
And, or someone's dad's workroom.
But one day,
not my
in
dad.
the future,
yes,
someone's dad.
Yes, and that is hilarious.
Yes.
That sounds cool. Are there, if your 3D printer is pretty big, there are bigger ones, the concrete ones are obviously.
Oh, yeah. And there's big versions of mine too. There's big fusion printers. I'm trying to get my office to buy one that can print. Yeah. Well, because we need it. We make huge parts.
Okay.
And we want to prototype them.
Yeah.
But like there's things where you can do like a cube. The build volume is like a meter. It's like 3 feet cube, and you can build in that. Huge.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
They're really cool.
So if you had that giant machine and you had a tiny nozzle, could you build the most detailed things?
Yes, you could. You absolutely could.
And how long does it take to build a thing? Does it take an hour? Does it take a day?
It's on the scale of hours. Again, it's a trade-off of detail. So I will say that when I was making the figures for Gloomhaven, I would print like 8 at a time, and I had these tiny layers. And so if I would print 8 minifigs, would literally take like 2 to 3 days solid. It would just go printing.
Oh, good Lord. Yeah. So you would essentially press play.
And then walk away.
Walk away.
Yeah.
Do you have to refill the
the filament running out in the middle of a print is like a nightmare scenario. In the modern era, it's not as bad because modern printers have what's called a runout sensor. So it knows that the filament ran out and it'll stop and it'll say refill me.
Okay.
Usually, because that can fail and then you're really up shit's creek because you made it like, 2 days and 12 hours into a 3-day print and then you're like, oh no.
Right. But it has sort of a printer tray kind of sensor that they've added to it.
Exactly.
And so then you're just, like, where does it go? Like, share that screen again if you would.
Okay, yeah.
And show me where you're filling the filament into it.
So, let's see if we can get a good one. Okay, oh yeah, there we go. That's a great picture.
Okay.
So the filament comes in through the top. This is not with the print dry, by the way. This is just a different one. It comes in straight through the top.
Oh,
right down.
Okay,
into
so it's just got a tiny box, what looks to be an empty box right now, or a cage.
What? This thing?
The gray thing on top?
Oh, the gray thing on top is a roll of filament. It's just seen straight from the front. Like where's the other one? See, like this is maybe a better way to look at it. See?
Oh, okay.
Like that.
Oh, yeah. So that's so it's a spool.
Yeah, it's just a spool.
It's a spool of extruded
filament.
Wire filament.
Yeah, like plastic wire. Yeah.
Is that what filament means? Hi, I'm
that's
over
what
here.
filament means. Sorry.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for playing, Jackie. Okay, so it just and is that white line that's going into the top box? Is that the filament as well?
That is the filament. I use a tube of Teflon, it's PTFE.
Yeah.
As I learned when I started working for an engineering company, Teflon, the name, is trademarked, so you can't call it Teflon unless it's made by DuPont.
Oh, fair enough. It's the Kleenex of filament?
Yes, exactly. So Teflon, you cannot print with Teflon. There's weird things because it's whatever. But I use, this is actually one of the modifications I made. By default, it doesn't do this. I have a little Teflon tube that just goes into the top, and I feed my filament through the Teflon tube to basically protect it as it's going in, and also because it makes it a lot stiffer, so it keeps it from bending really sharply as the thing's moving around.
Okay. And so as that filament is dropped into the printer, because it's just sitting there, right? There's a stack of orange. Is it hotting it up as it heads towards the tiny fan?
So that tiny fan is not actually the tiny fan. The orange tiny fan is just a. It's really just a decoration, but it tells you when the extruder motor is moving, when it's actually pushing it.
Okay.
But it's basically just a decoration.
But it looks like a tiny fan. So
yeah, it does.
So as you go down,
it just pushes. It has like little gears, and it pushes it through into the nozzle, which is very hot.
Okay.
And then it pushes it out, melted through the nozzle exactly where you want, and so it just moves. That little box moves left and right. The platform moves front and back. And that's how it positions it where it needs to be.
Okay, and is the tiny different colored orange thing on the bottom, is that the nozzle? Is that what it comes out of?
That is a fan shroud. So that is, the nozzle is even smaller. It's way underneath there. The
Okay.
nozzle is really tiny. That's like a blower essentially, just to
Okay.
blow air, because you want it, as soon as it comes out hot, you want it to start immediately cooling down.
Yeah.
So there's like a fan that's all it does, is it blows air on the plastic as it's coming out.
Do you ever just sit and watch it?
Oh, absolutely. It is hypnotizing. You just sit there and it's going, and I could sit there for 2 hours, just like, yeah.
So something could take 3 days to do it. You walk away. How long did it take to make those crystals?
Those crystals probably didn't take that long. I think most of the stuff that I print nowadays, because I tend to print like functional stuff, takes on the order of like a few hours.
Are you building a ship to get off this planet? What are you building right now? What are you building?
Right now, I'm not building anything.
Okay.
This summer, I built a few fun things. I made this thing, which is my local farmers market has a wonderful person, Urban Harvest Farmers Market in Houston, Texas. If you're listening, go see Jackie.
Yay!
Her name is also Jackie.
Houston. Oh, okay. And Houston comedy scene is actually quite great. So I wish to return, because there's a sort of a bunch of local comics who just put up shows, and I have worked with them a couple of times, just opening for Maria, Bamford. But I would come back anytime.
That's awesome. So she makes macarons, and she has literally 100 different flavors that she makes. And so she'll pick like a dozen every week, and she's like, I'm making these ones.
Yeah.
And she got really tired of writing everything on the blackboard. And all she wanted literally from me was, because she knew I had a laminator, and she goes, can you make laminated cards? And I go, well, I could, but you want something cooler? And so I made her these black cards. Oh, because we didn't even talk about this. Mid-print filament changes. So you can change the filament in the middle of a print. And you can only do this with the same material of a different color.
Okay.
And
but just like changing thread.
Exactly. You just stop it. It stops it. It unloads. You load the next one. And so what you can do with that, which I love, and I did here, you can see, is you can write. So you the first however many layers are white,
okay,
and then the next layers are black, but they have the word cut out of it, Okay.
Oh, like negative space.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And so through that cutout, you see the white, and you spell something out. So in this case, you see all of the flavors that she used. So that was a much bigger project than I thought it was going to be, but it was still fun.
How big is that?
But it took. Each one of the little cards it's like an inch tall by like 6 to 8 inches wide.
Okay, so it's literally like the size of my hand, a little bit bigger than my hand. So this is this is a tabletop card. This is not a standing card outside the door.
Yeah, no. She has like a sandwich board, and we just stick these cards to them.
Oh, fair enough. Okay.
Yeah.
But does she have to go with these same 10? Like you were like.
Well, she has that. Well, she gave me her giant list of like 100 flavors, and she goes, "Can you So I printed all of them, and then she just picks so she has essentially a big box of these cards, and she just picks the ones that she's going to use.
Okay, so she can swap out if it's not chocolate and vanilla, she can go chocolate, cotton candy, and blackberry, and those are the 3 I'm making.
Exactly.
Okay, fair enough. Oh, so she can. Oh, excellent.
Yeah, so she'll call me every now and then, and she'll be like, "I'm making a new flavor." She just did cafe mocha, and I'll make her a new card. So that's fun. And then the other one, this is me being an absolutely.
Do you get free macarons?
I have gotten the occasional free macaron, yes, because I did this for her.
That's very nice. Excellent.
Oh, I made this for Christopher, for my boyfriend. As I said, he's in restaurants. He's specifically in wines.
Oh, nice.
And so he got these little 2-ounce sample bottles, 2-ounce glass bottles, and on Amazon that he was going to give to people to try out different wines. And he's like, I want you to make something that I can carry these in.
Yeah.
And this is my favorite thing about 3D printing, because it's like it frees you from sort of the standard. I was going to make like a standard sort of milk carton, like little 6-pack. And I was like, but I don't need to do that. I can make whatever I want. So I made this honeycomb thing where it's like a carousel. So it's 6 pieces around the central one. And then there's a second piece that you just screw in that's a handle. So you carry it like that.
Oh, and it looks like a cork. It looks like a cork remover.
I didn't even realize that, but it does. It looks like a little cork opener.
Yeah. Oh my God, that is gorgeous. And so he could just hand people this adorable. These are 2 ounces.
Here, try these.
Try these 6 different kinds of wine. And is he a sommelier?
He is a licensed sommelier, but he works in distribution.
Well,
So,
as does my nephew. And initially I was like, you're working at a liquor store? Anyway, and then he was like, stop talking to me. Anyway, I get to go to Spain and France twice a year. Leave me alone.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Christopher was set up to go to Italy, and then, COVID happened.
Oh, poor thing. But it will resolve. And we live in hope, ladies and gentlemen. I think we're at an hour. I have no idea.
Okay. Yeah.
But
I think we're actually past an hour. I really could talk about this for 17 hours.
it's so great. So stop sharing that so I can see where we are. Nicholas Betancourt, you guys. It's at Nick HBET on Twitter, and then at NH Betancourt on Instagram, which maybe he'll share. Maybe he'll share his TX Engineer 14.
Yeah. TX Engineer 14 is probably a better if I'm going to post, like, if you want to go specifically for 3D printing stuff.
Right. And that's Thingiverse?
Thingiverse with an I.
Thingiverse with an I.
THINGIVERSE. Thingiverse.
Thank you so much for this, Nick. This was super fun.
This is fun.
I have learned so much. Rangers, how great was this? And definitely, you should go. Since quarantine, I have been posting them all on YouTube. If the video is not something that I've hated. Hi, my head is round. So it's fine. But thank you so much for doing the show. And Rangers, you know the rules out there. Take care of each other.
My hat, my hat, my hat. They're dancing around my hat, my hat, my hat, my hat. Well, what do you think of that? If it looks like a Mexican hat dance and it sounds like a Mexican hat dance, it's most likely a Mexican hat dance. So take off your hat and let's dance.
Yay! Oh my God. Why don't we just call that as the end of the show?